being able to run 4 lines dominantly over your 20-year playoff run, are those days over? Because you've already been talking about, you can't spend like you used to. It's so even around the league now. Where do you think that's heading? Being able to, deal with that depth that Jim was referring to.
That's the biggest challenge. We all got calculators, and you start adding up numbers. And if you're going to have 6 guys making $5 million in your top 2 lines, somebody's not making money somewhere else, and that's exactly the challenge. And that's why when somebody says, well, you need another 40-goal scorer, you need another big defenseman, you need another big goalie, high-priced goalie, high-priced defenseman, eventually the numbers don't add up, and you got to find a way to spread it out, or you're going to have a hole somewhere else. And that's been our biggest part, is trying to keep our depth.
And I'll add that, at times we sit internally, and I'm going to come to, are we tough enough? Okay, that's a dimension that you want on every team. So, on our 4th line last year, Drew Miller has 10 goals, and Patrick Eves gets 13 goals. That's 23 goals. Now, last year we were 2nd in the league in goals, but the year before, we had all those injuries up to the Olympic break. Our feeling was, if we don't have hockey players on the 4th line, and we have one-dimensional players that are toughness, we miss the playoffs. Those goals, because both those guys had 13 goals. Eves had 13 goals last year, had 13 goals the year before. Miller had 10 goals last year, Miller had 10 goals the year before. Those 23 goals that those players scored in the 09-010 season, we think were a factor in us hanging in there until we got our team back the last 20 games. We were able to make a push and qualify for the playoffs, beat Phoenix, and obviously lose to San Jose. So to your point, there's so many dimensions that you need on a team. We can't address every dimension. It's impossible. Those days are done. Those days of us putting the 01-02 team on the ice with all those high-end players, and our 4th line that year, our bottom 2 lines were the grind line, and then we had Robitaille, Larionov, and Holmstrom. Those days are done. That was our 4th line. I remember in Game 7 against Colorado, that we scored 7 goals. Our 4th line scored 4 goals. So, but we still think our 4th line, last year probably our 4th line was Helm, Eves, and Miller. If you want to put a line together, you shake it up. The ability to roll 4 lines was the reason why we were able to be the 2nd leading scoring team in the league, 1 goal less than Vancouver. We got to get better defensively. We were 23rd in the league in goals against. We were 17th league in the penalty kill. Mike Babcock's got some new assistant coaches. He's trying some new schemes or things on the penalty kill. We're trying some different D-zone coverage. We're trying some different things in the neutral zone. We're a work in progress. We got to get better defensively, but ultimately we think the way we build a team. Now, is there going to be the odd night when I'm going to be sitting at Joe Louis Arena and we're either up by 5 or down by 5, and the other team wants to get really physical, and then I hear somebody yell, well, hit somebody or do something? We can't address every need. We believe the philosophy that allowed us to win 4 Stanley Cups and make the playoffs 20 straight years is the right philosophy as we head into this continue to go along this new world that we're talking about, where you got to skate. You got to have some hockey sense. You got to bring something to the. Now, would we like to have Darren McCarty in his prime and put him in our lineup? Absolutely. But we haven't drafted that type of guy. We've tried. They either haven't developed, or we don't pick high enough to get the guy that can play good hockey and has a real tough element to his games. Those guys go in the top 10 in the draft. By the time we pick, we got to make a choice. Do we want a guy that's got more toughness, lower on the skill? Do we want to have a guy that's higher on the skill, and now there's some other parts missing in his game, and he can't have enough skill? So we think that we're putting 4 lines together. That's why we kept Corey Emerton. That's why we're trying to get Fabian Brunstrom. That's why we bring along Jan Mursak. We're trying to develop that next group of players that can play on the bottom 2 lines. In the meantime, we've got some kids that we think can be high-end players. We got a kid, Kelly Jonkrok, a Swedish kid who was a 2nd-round pick. He plays regular in the Swedish Elite League. He was captain of the Swedish World Junior team last year. Got my fingers crossed. He needs to put on 20, 25 pounds. Really good player. Is he going to be a star, or is he just going to be a regular player? I don't know. We just think the longer we can wait, and the more success he can have at the lower levels, his confidence grows, and when he comes up here, he's ready for a higher end of performance. We think Brendan Smith, he's 21 years of age. We want 23 and 24-year-olds to be good players. If you're a really good player in the NHL at 24, you're probably going to be a star. Most players become players in their 25 to 28. The league's too good. The league's too good. We used to trot out these Chelioses and Robitailles and Haseks. I mean, even those guys. When we got Chelly, how old were you, Chelly, when we acquired you? 37? Yep. We were getting guys, and we got 10 years out of Chelly. And Hasek we got was, what was Hasek? 36, 37, 35, 36. But we're starting this process. So we believe we can roll 4 lines. We believe that's what we got to have lots of above average players. We got Datsuk and Zetterberg and Franson. We're challenging the 20-somethings on our team. Howard's 20-something. On defense, Erickson, White, Kindle, up front, Philpla, Helm, Abdelkader, Eves, Miller, Hoodler, Mersak, Emerton, Brunstrom. We need 1 or 2 of those. It's impossible for them all to take a jump because they need ice time. So we need 1 or 2 or 3 of those kids to take a step forward this year, which will help our team become better. But it's impossible. There's not enough ice time for all these kids to take a jump in their career. Somebody's got to sit on the bench while the game's going on. So we've got lots. Our team, there used to be this talk, we're too old, we're too old, we're too old, we're too old. We have at least half our team in the 20s, and we got a little bit of a wave coming. Now, there's no Eisermans, there's no Lidstroms. Now, we got lucky with Lidstrom in the 3rd round. Eiserman was the 4th pick in the draft. We don't want the 4th pick in the draft. So how do we I don't know, we're trying to figure out how do we stay competitive? How do we compete with San Jose, with Vancouver, with Calgary, with Chicago? If you look at Chicago's nucleus, what's Taze? 24? What's Kane? 22, 23? Keith is 27, Seabrook, but they had a run there of what, Taze was the 3rd pick in the draft, Kane was the 1st pick in the draft, Seabrook was the 7th pick in the draft, and there's other, we're trying to avoid, I don't know if we can or we can't, so we're trying to have lots of above average players. We're getting back to the question earlier, and hopefully some of these above average players, 1 or 2 are going to become better than we think.
Quick question, Kenny, about the team perhaps moving to the Eastern Conference or realignment. Any word on that?
Well, we want to be in the East. We're lobbying hard. Board of Governors meetings in December. I'm assuming they'll make the final decision. Obviously, we think because of our history and our tradition and everything that goes with it that we should be in the East and how long we've been around. I know Columbus thinks that they should be in the East. I think Nashville feels they should be in the Southeast because they're close to those teams down there. We want to be in the East. We're lobbying hard. Now, what has to happen is under the, I think 20 teams out of 30 have to agree with whatever. So, Gary Bettman's job is to appease everybody a little bit. So, we want to be in the East. We're lobbying to be in the East. We're trying to rally support. You have lots of teams in the West that would like to keep us in the West. They like the rivalry that we've got, but we're going to work hard behind the scenes.
Is there going to be realignment though? Is that
definitely going to be realignment because Winnipeg is going to go west, so something's going to happen.
Hi guys, Sue Lefevre from the Forum Club. I want to talk a little bit about the playoff format that we have. We're right now in the baseball format, and exciting having the Tigers in it, and they have only their top elite teams in their format for the playoffs. In the NHL, we all know we basically have 2 seasons. We have the regular season and we have the playoff season, and it goes long into June. Is there any thought that they would shorten up so that losing teams in the NHL wouldn't get into the playoffs, that it would be more of the elite teams?
No. I guess I would say to you that in order to qualify, I kind of look this year, if you don't get close to 100 points, you're not making the playoffs. So, there was 15 playoff series last year. 8 went to Game 7. The 2 teams that were in the Stanley Cup Finals, Vancouver and Boston, both were in overtime in round one. Both were a shot away from being eliminated. I don't think there's any, I think if you make the playoffs, you're a 100-point team. We had 104 points and we were like 6 points out of missing the playoffs. We had the best record in the league at Christmas, at US Thanksgiving. We were 17-4-3. We just barely made the playoffs. So I don't think there's any bad teams in the playoffs. I don't think there's any appetite for reducing. I mean, really, to have a tournament that you're talking about, you'd have to go from 16 teams down to 8. 4 make the playoffs in the West and 4 make the playoffs in the East. I don't think there's any appetite for that.